Every school year has these three big moments that can feel like high-stakes tests. But for us, the parents, we're talking about the report card, the parent-teacher conference, and trying to figure out when to step in and advocate for your child. Today, we're going to show you how to connect these dots, turning them from things that cause stress into your best tools for a really successful school year.
So, let's kick things off with a huge shift in perspective. When that report card shows up, what's your first reaction? Do you see a final grade, almost like a judgment, or do you see a starting point? We're going to explore how to look at these moments not as verdicts, but as a roadmap for the journey ahead. All right, this part is so important. These aren't just separate, stressful events you have to get through on the calendar. What we're actually building here is a really powerful feedback loop, a continuous cycle of communication between your home and your child's school. Think of it like this. The report card sends you a signal. Then the conference gives you the context, the story behind that signal. And finally, your advocacy, that's the action you take based on everything you've learned. When you see these as one connected process, you totally transform your role in your child's education. Okay, so let's start with that first signal, the report card. It arrives, you take a deep breath, you open it. Now what? The key isn't just to scan for the grades, but to really decode what it's telling you, to understand the whole story. A lot of report cards make this really critical distinction. On one side, you've got academic performance. This is all about mastery. Does your child really get the math concepts? Can they write a solid paragraph? It's about what they know and can do. Then, on the other side, you have work habits. Things like effort, participation, being organized. It is so crucial not to mix these two up. A kid can have amazing work habits and still be struggling with a skill, or the other way around. So, what happens when you see a grade like developing, or maybe a 2 on a 4-point scale? I know your gut reaction might be to panic, but let's reframe this. This is not a failure. It is simply a signal. It's the report card basically saying, hey, this is an area where your child needs a bit more practice and support to really get it down consistently. It's an invitation to dig deeper, not a final judgment. This simple switch in how you phrase your question can change absolutely everything. So instead of an accusatory, why did you get this grade, you shift to a collaborative question. Okay, so let's look at this. Which skills are you feeling really good about, and which ones maybe need a little more support? See how that totally changes the tone? It focuses the conversation on growth, not on blame. All right, so you've decoded the report card, you've pinpointed some things to talk about. Now we move to the next part of the loop, the parent-teacher conference. This should not be a reactive conversation. Think of it as a prepared, data-driven strategy session. A great conference actually starts before you even walk through the door, and it's not complicated. Here's a super simple timeline. About a week out, just review the data, the report card, any recent test scores. A few days before, grab some actual work samples, maybe a couple your child is proud of and one that was a bit of a struggle. Then, the day before, just finalize the specific questions you want to ask. Doing this prep completely changes the dynamic of that meeting. Now about those questions. Instead of the super general, so how's my kid doing, which just gets you a general answer, try these. Asking for evidence of strengths kicks things off on a positive, concrete note. Asking to prioritize one specific skill makes the goal feel achievable and focused, and asking about the plan for support makes the next steps clear for everybody. Your goal is really simple. You want to walk out of that conference with total clarity on 3 things. Number 1, what can my child do right now? 2, where are the specific gaps? And 3, what is the actual concrete plan to close those gaps both at school and at home? But what happens when the plan just isn't working, or you feel like your concerns aren't being heard? This brings us to the final piece of our feedback loop, effective advocacy. And I know that word can sound kind of intense, but it doesn't have to be confrontational. It can actually be a structured problem-solving process. First off, timing is everything. Advocacy isn't for a single bad grade or one little miscommunication. It really comes into play when you start to see a persistent pattern. You've had the conference, you've tried the plan, but your child's needs are still not being met. That's your signal to shift into a more formal advocacy mode. And here it is, a super simple framework to make that whole process feel way more manageable. Step 1, be crystal clear about the specific concern. Not just, he's struggling in math, but he consistently has trouble with multi-step word problems. Step 2, present your evidence. Those work samples you gathered, the report card data, any emails. And step 3, come with a proposed next step or a reasonable solution.
This shifts the whole conversation from just complaining about a problem to actually collaborating on a solution.
Just always remember this. The goal here is to solve a problem, not to start a conflict. Truly effective advocacy is all about collaboration, not being adversaries. When you approach it with clear concerns, solid evidence, and a team player attitude, you're not starting a fight, you're inviting the school to be a better partner. So let's pull this all together. We've seen how these three different moments are really just part of one powerful system, a system that you can use to support your child's learning. The whole process kicks off right here. The report card isn't the final word, it's the data. It gives you the initial signals that tell you where you need to focus your attention. Next up, the parent-teacher conference. This is where you take those signals and you get the context. This is the story behind the data, the little details, the teacher's perspective, everything you need to build a complete picture. And finally, if it's needed, advocacy is what turns all that information into a concrete plan for action. It's the tool you use to make sure that the signals and the context actually lead to real, meaningful support for your child.
So the real question is this. Now that you see this loop of signals, context, and action, what's one thing you might do differently this year? How are you going to use this framework, not just to track your child's progress, but to actively partner in their success? Because when you see yourself as a partner, not just a worried parent, absolutely everything can change.